the brand, gentlemen. This is the legacy handed down to us by Sir.
Our orders are to burn all the books and gather up supplies. If you come across any refugees, you will bring them forward. The cap is our symbol! Each man will wear it with pride!
How would you say if everything that you knew was a lie?
Roxy, you forgot your diary. You wouldn't want to leave this behind.
Do you know Professor Diedrich? He told me not to get the chip. He said the bombings were planned.
The housing collapse, the financial collapse, all part of a sick plan.
The man himself, Mr. Zern!
Roxy, almost everything in your diary has a prophecy.
By his own will, can a man rule the world?
Yes, sir! Yes, sir!
Those horrible attacks will only drive Zern Global on to ensure two things worldwide: peace and security.
You in this exercise in transparency and democracy.
Is that what it is?
Sorry,
I didn't
mean to break
thought
out
it was an
laughter.
exercise in spin and obfuscation.
All right.
My, what a peculiar place to have a party. You know, Dino, we really shouldn't be doing this. After all, we haven't been invited, and curiosity often leads to trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
They have an idea of what's going on. Ma'am, were you let out of work early today? You're on live, Channel 11.
I was at the work. I work on 55 Water for TD Waterhouse. We saw the whole thing.
You saw everything?
The plane hit. We saw the second plane. We saw when the thing blew up, the fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. Oh, God. You're obviously very emotional. Jeanette.
I'm sorry.
I know. I can totally understand that. Yes, go ahead, Jim. I'm going to try and talk to some people and see if they have an idea of what's going on. Ma'am, were you let out of work early today? You're on live, Channel 11.
I was at the work. I work on 55 Water for TD Waterhouse. We saw the whole thing.
You saw everything?
The plane hit. We saw the second plane. We saw when the thing blew up, the fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. Oh, God. You're obviously very emotional. Jeanette.
I'm sorry.
I know. I can totally understand that. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
The fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. Oh, God. You're obviously very emotional.
Mr. President, earlier this year you told us you had ordered your administration to cease and desist on payments to journalists to promote your agenda. You cited the need for ethical concerns and the need for a bright line between the press and the government. Your administration continues to make the use of video news releases, which are prepackaged news stories sent to television stations, fully aware that some or many of these stations will air them without any disclaimer that they are produced by the government. Comptroller General of the United States this week said that raises ethical questions. Does it raise ethical questions about the use of government money to produce stories about the government that wind up being aired with no disclosure that they were produced by the government?
There is a Justice Department opinion that says these pieces are within the law so long as they're based upon facts, not advocacy. And I expect our agencies to adhere to that ruling, to that Justice Department opinion. This has been a long-standing practice of the federal government to use these types of videos. Agricultural Department, as I understand, has been using these videos for a long period of time. The Defense Department, other departments have been doing so. It's important that they be based upon the guidelines set out by the Justice Department. Now, I think it'd be helpful if local stations then disclose to their viewers if that's, that this was based upon a factual report and they chose to use it. But evidently in some cases that's not the case. So anyway.
To guarantee that's happening by including that language in the prepackaged report.
Yeah, I don't, look, oh, you mean a disclosure on George W. Bush and I?
Well, some way to make sure it couldn't air without the disclosure that you believe is so vital.
Ken, I mean, there's a procedure that we're going to follow, and the local stations ought to, if there's a deep concern about that, ought to tell their viewers what they're watching.
I'm in show business, yes? Why come to me?
Well, I'll tell you why, Mr. Morse. 54-45, what does that mean?
It's a slogan. It's from the...
Remember the Maine?
Yeah, that's gotta be from...
Tippecanoe and Tyler, too.
No, that's not the...
Well, they're war slogans, Mr. Morse. We remember the slogans, we can't even remember the fucking wars. You know why?
Why?
That's show business. That's why we're here.
I see.
Naked girl, covered in napalm. V for victory. 5 Marines raising the flag. Mount Suribachi. You remember the picture 50 years from now, you'll have forgotten the war.
True.
To go for, smart bomb falling down the chimney, 2,500 missions a day, 100 days. One video of one bomb, Mr. Morse. The American people bought that war. War is show business. That's why we're here.
And what do you do for the president? Why Albania?
Why not?
They gotta know at some point.
Who?
Who? The public.
They gotta know?
Yes.
Stan, get with it. Who killed Kennedy? I read the first draft of the Warren report. It says he was killed by a drunk driver. You watch the Go For. What do you see day after day? The one smart bomb falling down a chimney. The truth? I was in the building when we shot that shot. We shot it in a studio, Falls Church, Virginia, 1/10 scale model of a building.
Is that true?
How the fuck do we know? You take my point?
Yes. All right. Okay. And you want me to do what?
We want you to produce.
You want me to produce your war?
Not a war. It's a pageant. We need a theme, a song, some visuals. We need, it's a pageant. It's like the Oscars. That's why we came to you.
Another one of those.
Everyone should have a healthy distrust of the media. One of the most dangerous, unspoken things in existence in the world today is a media controlled by a very small group of corporate entities. Every day, we are constantly lied to and constantly told what to think. And most of us never even realize it. It's become a duty and call to action to wake people up to this reality. Before blindly listening to what's hurled at you, everyone has a personal responsibility to at least know what's going on before handing your mind over to the many forms of media indoctrination. In short, wake up. It becomes a frustrating experience to wake people up from the matrix, so to speak, and constantly overhear people all around still completely misdirected and mired in false narratives. The day after the attack in Paris, for example, Almost everyone immediately began talking about how crazy people in the world are today, changing their profiles to French flags and immediately posting support and condolences. And the irony was that no one had a clue about what really happened or why the entire world was made to watch. In addition to that, most people are lazy, distracted by a capitalistic existence, don't know they are brainwashed, and most times don't know what they are doing or why. Your thoughts are not your own, and you're being led by the hand every step of the way. Most people openly and defiantly do not trust their governments. People know better. However, simultaneously, they overtly trust each and everything their government does, says, and presents anyway. Because most people trust corporate news narratives where they get most of their information and never question any of it. Most people are still completely unaware that governments orchestrate and/or stage events all the time. This was always done throughout history and is still maintained today. This is nothing new under the sun. You can't even explain this to sheeple, because you might become the one under attack or ridiculed for trying to tell people the real truth. Unfortunately, we have a world of people who don't understand how the world works. The media is not for information, it's for indoctrination. It's owned and operated by a very small group, and the objective of news media is compromised. It's not about informing you about what's going on in the world. The main function is to carry out agendas and control what you think, how you behave, and what you believe.
Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. And it is not right what my colleagues do and have done in the past, because they are bribed to betray the people, not only in Germany, all over Europe.
I want you to listen to me, because I'm only going to say this once. Never, ever trust the news again. Not only is it the same crisis actress, but I don't even know how many different things, like it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different fake hoax shootings, gun grabs. And then this video I found that I've seen the video enough times of the original of this whole thing, and I could tell right away that it had been manipulated. And so I put this little thing together with I say real, I don't know that that's real, that's original, or the original release version, okay? And then they have the remastered version, the digitally altered, morphed, face swapped, whatever version on the right there. And you may say that it's the aspect ratio, but you know, they have the globe back there, and the globe is circular, it's round in both versions, and so it tells me that they only digitally manipulated the face. They made the teeth bigger, they did certain things to make them look different.
The worst days of my life. I guess I didn't know how much one person can love another until you just don't know where they're at. You just have no idea, and I'm just hoping for a sign of some sort that he's okay. And I believe in God, and I believe that God is with him, and that is what I hold on to. That is where my hope comes from.
My heart is with you, Emily, and I can't even pretend to understand what this is like for you. You know, if let's remain optimistic. If he's okay, you know, and in that first phone call with him, what's the first thing you're going to tell him? That first phone call with him, what's the first thing you're going to tell him?
That God is our Savior, and that if we can make it through this, then there's nothing that can stand between us. And I just cannot wait to see his smile, and I'm just in hope that that time will come very shortly. And yeah.
Emily Eisenman, I am thinking only happy thoughts for you. Thank you so much for the time. Let's stay in touch.
I want to start with the first Gulf War in Iraq 27 years ago, since this is probably the best example of just how low the establishment are willing to sink in order to further their selfish agendas. Now, as usual, the so-called elite were trying to convince the civilian population to go to war, but most people were unwilling. That, however, literally changed overnight when the world heard the horrific testimony of a young Kuwaiti girl named Naira.
I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying.
This truly shocking story of Iraqi soldiers ruthlessly killing innocent babies quickly spread around the globe.
Pulled from incubators and scattered like firewood across the floor.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
Rip babies from their incubators in Kuwait.
Even Amnesty International cited Naira's haunting testimony to back up the claim that more than 300 babies were mercilessly murdered at the hands of the Iraqi government. There was just one problem with the teenage girl's testimony. The whole thing was a fabricated lie.
A rather embarrassed Amnesty retracted its report. In London, spokesman Sean Stiles said, as hard as they tried, they could not confirm it.
We spoke to well over a dozen doctors of different nationalities who had been in Kuwait at the time, and they couldn't stand the story up, and it became quite clear to us that credible medical opinion was that this didn't happen.
And it wasn't just Amnesty International. The story did not hold up under repeated scrutiny by reporters and human rights investigators, including Andrew Whitley, executive director of the human rights group Middle East Watch.
You went to investigate.
Yes, we did.
You went to Saudi, and then after the liberation of Kuwait, you went to Kuwait.
Correct.
What did you find?
We went straight to the hospitals. We were particularly concerned with going to the maternity hospital at the Al Sabah complex. This is the largest hospital in the country, and it's a hospital that has perhaps half to two-thirds of all the incubators in the country.
Did Iraqi soldiers remove babies from incubators?
No, they did not. Not at all.
So what the hell really happened? And who was Naira? Well, it turns out that this not-so-innocent teenage girl was really a part of the Kuwaiti royal family and the daughter of the Kuwaiti foreign ambassador to the United States. And her Academy Award-winning testimony that she gave was actually thanks to the coaching she had received from a massive public relations firm named Hill & Knowlton, a company with very close ties to the U.S. government.
Craig Fuller, who until last week was president of Hill & Knowlton, was George Bush's chief of staff when he was vice president.
I was involved in President Bush's campaign. I've also been involved in President Reagan's campaign, and this was like a campaign in every sense of the word.
He needed no introduction to the administration.
my relationships there kind of continue, even having left the government. And I think almost spontaneously, as the Kuwaitis were talking to us, we were also talking to the people in the administration to find out how we could be supportive with respect to the president's program.
The program was to go to war.
Now, as unbelievably unethical and psychopathic as this all is, it's not an isolated incident, guys. With the Vietnam War, which began over 60 years ago, the government made the claim that they had been attacked and used this as a justification to go to war. We now know today that once again, these were nothing but lies.
Was there anything to shoot at out there?
No, I don't. I'm certain that there was not anything to shoot at, right from the beginning.
You know, I've been hearing more and more about a thing called fake news. Fake news. I've seen people destroyed, and I think it's very unfair. Some of the media outlets that I deal with the fake news. Fake news. I think it's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, but I don't think they care. Well, first of all, one of the reasons I'm here today is to tell you the whole Russian thing, that's a ruse. It's a ruse. I own nothing in Russia. I don't have any deals in Russia. Russia is fake news. I just see many, many untruthful things. The press has become so dishonest. The public doesn't believe you people anymore. You have a lower approval rate than Congress. You know, I've been hearing more and more about a thing called fake news. Fake news. I've seen people destroyed, and I think it's very unfair. Some of the media outlets that I deal with the fake news. Fake news. I think it's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, but I don't think they care. I'll tell you something, I don't mind bad stories. I can handle a bad story better than anybody as long as it's true. But I'm not okay when it is fake. It's all fake news. I mean, it's a story after story after story. We're not gonna let it happen again. The public gets it. When I go to rallies, they want to throw their records to CNN. Here's the thing. I want to see an honest press. I want to see an honest press. I want to see an honest press. It's so important to see an honest press. I want to see an honest press. I want to see an honest press. But our nation's reporters will not tell you the truth. So I'll go over just some of them. MSNBC. You are fake news. The New York Times. You are fake news. CBS, NBC, ABC, BBC, LA Times. You are fake news. The Washington Post. You are fake news. CNN. Very fake news. Politico, AP, BuzzFeed. Failing pile of garbage. And I've been hearing more and more about a thing called fake news. Fake news. I've seen people destroyed, and I think it's very unfair. Some of the media outlets that I deal with the fake news. Fake news. I think it's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, but I don't think they care.
Despite the fact that lots of our news is corporate-controlled fiction, we have been brainwashed to accept the news as the infallible truth. We are a society of drones who do not know how to think critically. And because of our media brainwashing, things often go very wrong, impacting the lives of citizens irreparably. All day, every day, just a few corporations cooperate each other's talking points, edit all the news, and dispatch everything you're meant to hear on all networks. There are several video compilations showing you just that.
Who are you really shopping for this holiday season? It's okay, you can admit it if you've bought an item or 2 or 10, for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it, Todd. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2.
2 or maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 10 items for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it, can admit it, can admit it, can admit it, can admit it.
Now that was something light. They control your thoughts about blatant police misconduct, routinely caught on video, but it gets psychologically downplayed, and they successfully make half of our society believe there's another side of the story. They also run completely fake news stories to support the fake war on terror on a regular basis. If you don't think that's true, hang on just a second. The government sends agents out to trick poor, desperate, sometimes even mentally challenged people easily lured in by the promise of money. Then they lock them up and throw them on the news as militant Islamic terrorists on the loose, who have been apprehended by great work as they promote the law enforcement and intelligence agencies as heroes. Some of you already know this, a lot of you don't. If you still doubt that, take a look at the Newburgh 4 debacle.
It's the reason that I feel as safe as you could possibly be. This is a city where people want to live together, and once again, when we are threatened, the NYPD, and working with the other foreign and domestic intelligence agencies, has shown that they are doing exactly what we would expect. As you know, the commissioner has devoted roughly 1,000 police officers to intelligence and counterterrorism. Commissioner Falkenrath is here with us today. These people do, behind the scenes, day in and day out, collect and analyze and prepare and train. And when something occurs, once again, they were there when we needed them.
They stated that they wanted to commit jihad. And again, you know, more information about the motive, I'm sure, will be developed as the case progresses. But right now, that was stated they wanted to commit jihad. They were disturbed about what was happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan, that Muslims were being killed. They all made the statement that they didn't, you know, if Jews were killed in this attack, it wouldn't, you know, that would be all right.
What all those familiar faces were talking about was all a setup.
Well, 3 men convicted of trying to blow up synagogues in New York have each been sentenced to 25 years in prison. But the case has raised huge controversy after they were actually incited by the FBI and handed fake bombs. Well, critics claim it was a setup, but the judge said her hands were tied. Marina Portnoy has more.
In countless so-called FBI sting operations,
FBI operatives provided the fake C4 and actually showed them a fake Stinger missile.
the inspiration to attack America has come from a government-paid informant working to orchestrate the plan. A tactic, critics say, exercised in a New York case dubbed Newburgh 4. The suspects, poor, illiterate African-American Muslims, were presented as the faces of homegrown terrorism and subsequently found guilty of conspiring and attempting terrorist attacks against the U.S. Direction came from Shahid Hussain, a Pakistani immigrant on the FBI payroll, reportedly paid $100,000 for his services. According to court testimony, Hussain recruited the cash-strapped former convicts by offering cars and cash to carry out the operation. Not one defendant had a passport or license. The Newburgh 4 were sentenced to 25 years in prison. A tearful and angered crowd of supporters gathered outside Manhattan's federal courthouse.
Who holds the government accountable? Turn it on your own American citizens, people that's born right here on American soil. This is a damn shame. Miscarriage of justice, and we will keep fighting back.
The government should not be allowed to entrap folks, to make plans and set the whole course of a complete plan, and then take the victims and sentence them to 25 years in prison.
FBI informants have reportedly been used in dozens of so-called foil plots since 9/11. Critics say hundreds of Americans are languishing behind bars for fake terror attacks planted and grown by the U.S. government.
And if you think that's an isolated case, think again. There's also the Miami 7 and several other incidents just like it. How does this even happen? Well, because most of us do not think critically. And people keep watching and trusting what they see and hear in the media. I can do this for a long time, showing examples and clips throughout history that show you how societal stupidity has been socially engineered, and people trusting the system fall right into the usual traps of media indoctrination. They have a frequently used strategy of making you trust in the source and then repeating the message.
Or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it, Todd. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you brought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself, it's okay, you can admit it. If you brought an item or 2.
Well, there's been plenty of support for the Syrian citizens living in eastern Ghouta via social media. Journalists and commentators sharing photos from the conflict zone. However, not all of them appear to show the actual real picture. As RT's Caleb Moppin now reports.
2 heartbreaking photos posted with the words, "This is Syria." Except it's not actually Syria. One is from Mosul in Iraq, and the other is from the Israeli bombing of Gaza. Now, it's been raised in the comments that it's not actually Syria, but regardless, this post by some guy in Cleveland has tens of thousands of retweets. We decided to find out how many people here in New York would be ready to retweet or share this.
Would you retweet that?
I would.
I don't typically use Twitter, but maybe?
No. It just seems like very politically motivated without having any serious message behind it.
I definitely wouldn't. I mean, just because there are horrors happening everywhere, and I don't know if Twitter is the platform for it anyways.
Yes, I would.
And why?
I'm half Palestinian, and this is the same thing that's going on in my country.
Interestingly, this is Mosul in Iraq, and that is Gaza. So it's not actually Syria.
No, but it's equivalent. The same type of things are going on in Syria. It's kind of just informative. It might not be, you know, to a T informative, but it's getting the message across.
So even if these pictures are of someplace else, it's okay. Do you buy that?
I mean, to some extent, yes. If you think that it's like taking an initiative, then I feel like the pictures don't really matter.
I think the real issue is scary and sad enough that we don't need to, misinform people.
You ought to have real journalism. You ought to have real information and verified, content. Would this be fake news?
Yeah, it would be fake news.
I mean, part of why I don't use Twitter is because of the information fabrication that exists. I'm also hesitant about Facebook for this exact reason.
You can't trust anything anymore, and it's a sad state of the world.
Now, the saddest part is that some commenters say they don't actually care. They say people are dying in Syria, aren't they? Facts don't matter. That's how things are in the post-truth world. Caleb Moppin, RT, New York.
With all that considered, I've also recently defended some high-profile people, and some people didn't understand why. Celebrities and public figures influence the masses, sometimes make lots of money, and attempt to do very ambitious things that affect the status quo. Character assassinations and even literal assassinations happen all the time, and for reasons you will never hear about. Sometimes the character assassinations have truth to it. Oftentimes, it doesn't, or includes exaggerations or fabrications with an endgame in mind. Regardless, what you should not do is sit there before TV sets like mindless lemmings, listening to everything you hear about any one of us. Could what you be hearing be true? Sure it could, but we as citizens should reserve judgment and demand that justice and due process be done through the courts for all of us, no matter what. No one should be tried through the media because your thoughts and emotions are being created and toyed with without your awareness. You would be playing their game, and you're shredding the contents of your own constitution, laws, and rights.
Because it doesn't look like they do. It looks like they're glorified fireworks, essentially big smoke bombs, if anything. And they don't have explosive warheads in them. And then, taking it one step further, the more I looked into the phony Hamas rockets that are, Hamas is a group controlled by Israel, was created by Israel, the more I've found out that the whole Iron Dome defense system, in fact, is basically just rockets that shoot up in the air and then explode. They don't actually hit any, they don't intercept anything. And it sounds kind of crazy at first, but the more you look into it actually, there's a lot of proof out there that Iron Dome itself is in fact a hoax. So why would they do that? Why would they fake intercepting Hamas rockets? Well, A, the Hamas rockets themselves don't exist to such a great extent, we were told, and B, it instills a sense of security, sense of pride, and also the most important, C, is the Israeli people feel they're under constant attack, but their government is able to help save them. But it's important to feel like you're under constant attack, otherwise you're not going to just go and genocide a whole bunch of Palestinians. So what proof is there that the Hamas rockets are fake? Well, the lack of proof is actually proof, because if they claim that there's so many hundreds of missiles being fired, there should be some images of buildings that got blown up. There should be images of missiles that are exploding and causing actual damage. The videos we see, if you do a search, it looks like a smoke bomb, and this gas station video is a good example. This is one of the few proof of Hamas missiles we actually see. And notice how it creates an enormous smoke bomb, and there isn't any damage to the asphalt. That is a pretty shitty bomb. That's not even a real rocket. That's just a big smoke bomb. But then you look further, and the Iron Dome system, what it does, it doesn't actually, you never see the Hamas missiles. You never see the Hamas rockets. You only see the Iron Dome rockets going out and exploding. And the more I looked into it, the more even Israelis are pointing out that the Iron Dome system is in fact a big hoax. It doesn't work like we were told it does. In fact, it doesn't actually do much of anything. All it does is send up rockets that explode in the air and don't actually intercept anything. So, at first, yeah, it sounds like bullshit, but check it out.
It is an Israeli-designed, American-funded breakthrough in military technology. Or just possibly a kind of optical illusion. Iron Dome is a missile defense system credited by Israel with destroying nearly 90% of the rockets fired at it during the last conflict with Palestinian militants in Gaza.
1, 2.
Not everyone's convinced. Because the incoming rockets are invisible to the naked eye, a handful of skeptics say that what we're witnessing may simply be the Iron Dome missiles themselves self-destructing without hitting anything.
I don't know exactly what happened, but I raise the question marks, and I would like to have an answer. I asked the IDF, show me your videos, your infrared videos in which you can see almost everything. But they said it's classified.
These Iron Dome missiles, filmed by a wedding photographer, were aimed at rockets fired from Gaza. Israelis believe Iron Dome can protect them from other enemies too. In uncertain times across the Middle East, they hope that seeing is believing. Kevin Connolly, BBC News, Jerusalem.
So this news clip ends with a whole bunch of rockets flying into the air, Iron Dome rockets, and you can see their trails. You see the trails of the Iron Dome rockets, and they all explode kind of like fireworks, but you don't see any actual trails from the alleged Hamas rockets that they're intercepting. That's kind of funny, isn't it? And it's funny how almost every single one of these Iron Dome rockets blows up, supposedly intercepting a Hamas rocket. The whole thing is just, you got to start wondering, are they just launching basically fireworks? Is Iron Dome basically a fireworks system that goes up there and makes a loud explosion, and the Israelis feel like they intercepted a Hamas rocket?
We intercept them in the middle of the way, in the air, in order to protect the people.
כן, נופלים. אבל לא, גם מיירטים אותם את הרוב, אני יודע. יש אבל פיצוצים, יש פיצוצים.
תעבור אליי.
הנה האזעקה, חבל להוציא להם את האזעקה.
בוא איתנו, בוא.
בוא איתנו, בוא.
תשמע איזה פיצוצים.
וואי, זה פה, ידבע.
שבר.
וואי! וואי, זה פה, יא
בוא
גנוב.
לפה, בוא, כנסו.
בוא, זה פה, קירי. זה הכיפת ברזל נראה לי, לא? כן. וואי.
Okay, so that was supposed proof that they were under bombardment by missiles. However, there's of course no explosions. The kids are all smiling and laughing, and then they walk out afterwards and there's some puffballs in the air.
אנחנו מרגישים וגם שומעים את הכיפה, בום, איך היא מורידה אותם, ואחר כך יוצאים, רואים את כל הזה.
לפגוע כמה שאפשר, אבל במקרה המזל הוא פוגע בעניינים. תראה מה שקרה פה.
What I can say is it's first of all not a 100% solution.
This man claims that a rocket just hit the building. However, it's interesting that the news agency there doesn't zoom in on any sort of damage to the building, and all we see is some water on the ground and maybe the grass looks disturbed. Even that's hard to tell. But why aren't they showing any actual damage if damage actually occurred from this Hamas rocket?
אתם שומעים את ניר דבורי?
השטר הזה, מנילה. לא.
כל הקהל להיכנס עכשיו לתוך האולם למרחב מוגן, חבר'ה, יש לנו מעל הראש, לכולם. להיכנס לאולם, כולם.
So again, we see the trail of the Iron Dome rocket, and we hear a loud explosion, yet we never see any trail from the alleged Hamas rocket. Funny how that happens in every single video, isn't it? And I'm going to finish this one off with, of course, a challenge to you to prove to me, to show me any footage of an Iron Dome rocket hitting a Hamas rocket, and it should be easy enough to prove that two rockets are hitting each other. You're seeing one rocket, but you're not seeing the other rocket. How's that work? Okay, here's an interesting article from an Israeli who's not a complete sellout genocide artist like a lot of them are. Israeli expert says Iron Dome defense is a hoax. An Israeli scientist and award-winning security expert has called the Iron Dome missiles defense system the biggest hoax the world has ever seen. Guess he hasn't heard of 9/11, but according to Dr. Mati Sheffer, today there is no missile which can intercept other missiles or rocket-propelled grenades, and the Iron Dome is a light audio system which blocks Israeli public opinion, and of course itself. In fact, all the explosions that we have seen in the atmosphere are self-destruction, just like what I've been saying here. The Iron Dome did not launch any rocket that could intercept at least one missile fired from Gaza. Of course, we know the truth about these alleged missiles fired from Gaza. They're basically emptied out metal hollow tubes. Sheffer added the concept of open areas is a myth created to amplify the Iron Dome's ability as a missile interceptor. He made an indirect accusation against the Dome's operating staff of misleading the public. The missiles which were intercepted by the Iron Dome and did not reach the ground are hypothetical missiles produced and destroyed in the Dome's computer control room. As of this moment, nobody has seen an intercepted missile fall to the ground. Totally believe it. If it happened, there'd be tons of video proof. The news would be all over it. But there hasn't been any proof. There's nothing. The scientist made his comments after challenge, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so anyway, it's a very interesting article. That's by the Middle East Monitor, and I believe every single word there because I haven't seen any proof at all that these Iron Dome rockets are intercepting anything. And especially during nighttime, you would expect to see a trail. It takes some sort of propulsion system for a rocket to fly through the air, and that burns very brightly. And there you never see any sort of propulsion system from the alleged Hamas missiles that the Iron Dome system is intercepting. Furthermore, they say that Israelis are safe because of the advanced warning system, that they get these automated warnings that a rocket's coming in. Maybe these are just the fictional computer-generated rockets that the Iron Dome system is supposedly blowing up, but in fact never existed in the first place. Like the man says, the missiles which were intercepted by the Iron Dome and did not reach the ground are hypothetical missiles produced and destroyed in the dome's computer control room. So the whole reason of Iron Dome is to stop non-existent missiles from hitting Israel and create the rage and the public opinion for an excuse for the invasion of Gaza and any other parts of Palestine that exist, and there's few of those left. Because without some sort of aggression by the Palestinians and by the Hamas forces which are created and controlled by Israel, there would be no justification for the invasion of Gaza, and Israel would look even more like a genocidal asshole than they already do. So anyway, look into it for yourself. If you can find any proof of a Iron Dome missile hitting a Hamas missile, I would love to see it, because I don't think there is any proof, and I think Iron Dome is basically a big fireworks system that the U.S. taxpayer is paying billions of dollars into.
And I'm deeply proud that President Obama helped make it possible. And I'm proud that with his enthusiastic support, the United States will more than double our investment in Iron Dome in 2015.
In the U.S. media, news anchors, pundits, politicians have extolled the efficacy of the Iron Dome in deflecting the barrage of Hamas rockets that put Israeli lives at risk.
Iron Dome is working. It's minimized casualties and fatalities.
Red flash as it intercepts the rocket. Now, this defense system is proving hugely successful.
Rockets begin coming through the sky, the night sky, and you see rockets come across the sky, and then you see Iron Dome interceptors come up and explode the rockets.
The Iron Dome anti-missile system did its job tracking the missiles, hitting them head-on, destroying them.
As we gazed overhead, we saw the interceptor missiles, the Iron Dome system, doing its job. At least 3 of those rockets shot down just a few moments ago.
Saying Iron Dome is not responsible for the low casualty rate for Israelis. Why?
Well, the low casualty rates are due to an extremely effective system of early warning and sheltering. There are shelters all over Israel that have been built by the government. People have shelters in their homes by law, and there's a warning system that tells you that a rocket might be traveling in your direction. So all you need to do is get into a shelter, and even if the rocket hits your house, you will not be killed.
So what if this whole system warning you of alleged incoming rockets was just telling you about simulated rockets? Simulated fake rockets that were coming in, and then they'd be shot down by the exaggerated firework Iron Dome system that just makes loud explosions, and everybody's in their bomb shelters so they can't see the non-rockets being shot down. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think there's enough information here to start a good dialogue, and if you can prove me wrong about Iron Dome being a fat scam, shooting down nothing, and just serving as a way to indoctrinate the Israeli people and feeling they're under constant attack, but saved by their glorified government, and also fleece the American taxpayers for billions of dollars, I'd like to see it. If anybody can provide even one video of a rocket being intercepted with another rocket that's visible, please share it.
And events afterwards showed that our judgment that we'd been attacked that day was wrong. It didn't happen.
In the more recent Iraq War, we were told over and over and over again that the Iraqi government had weapons of mass destruction.
The United States knows that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
And they were closely allied with Al-Qaeda.
Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of Al-Qaeda.
And again today, after all the destruction has already been caused and cannot be reversed, we know this was all bullshit lies.
The time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't.
It appears that There were not weapons of mass destruction there.
You said you knew where they were.
I did not.
We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit and Baghdad and east, west, south, and north somewhat.
You said you knew where they were, near Tikrit, near Baghdad, and north, east, south, and west of there. Those are your words.
My words were...
We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit and Baghdad and east, west, south.
The claim that Iraq was sponsoring terrorists who had attacked us on 9/11 turned out to be false.
I don't think we ever said, at least I know I didn't say, that there was a direct connection between September the 11th and Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of al-Qaeda.
And what about the Libyan war just a few years ago? They claimed this was purely a humanitarian intervention.
Humanitarian assistance.
Humanitarian relief. Humanitarian assistance.
Humanitarian and economic assistance.
And that they were intervening to stop a massacre.
We have intervened to stop a massacre.
Well, today, thanks to the exposition of Hillary Clinton's emails and an investigation conducted by the British government's House of Commons, we once again know that these were agenda-driven lies. Even more disturbing than this criminal deception is the fact that the US government and their allies openly supported terrorist fighters. Most notably, Abdul Hakim al-Assidi and Abdul Hakim Balhaj, members of an organization called the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, an organization that was internationally recognized before, during, and after the war by the United States, the United Kingdom, and the United Nations as an officially proscribed terrorist group. Yet in spite of this incontestable fact, and even after Abdul Hakim al-Assidi admitted openly to the mainstream media that his fighters had links to al-Qaeda, they still supported them.
There's a al-Qaeda flag flying over the courthouse in Benghazi in Libya, put there by the same group that we helped to oust the Gaddafi regime. What is going on in America? On one hand, we have soldiers dying in Afghanistan fighting al-Qaeda. On the other hand, we just helped a group of people take over Libya, and the al-Qaeda flag is flying over their capital city headquarters. What are we doing? It's time for America to get its story and its priorities straight about what we stand for as a nation.
It comes as no surprise then that today, Libya, which once enjoyed the highest standard of living in all of Africa under Gaddafi, is now a failed state, and the country has degraded into chaos. And now this same methodology is being used in Syria.
Allies to provide humanitarian support.
Humanitarian efforts.
Delivery of humanitarian aid. We're providing humanitarian assistance.
Providing humanitarian relief to the Syrian people.
And thanks to declassified documents, not only do we know that they've been once again supporting terrorists, but they literally helped facilitate the rise of ISIS.
The report is from 2012, and specifically, it explains the dangers of what the U.S. government is doing in Syria at the time. Remember, in 2012, ISIS, as we know them today, did not exist. Page 3 of those leaked pages state 3 facts about the situation in Syria. A, internally, events are taking a clear sectarian direction. B, the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and AQI, or al-Qaeda in Iraq, are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. And C, the West. Gulf countries and Turkey, they support the opposition, while Russia, China, and Iran support the regime. Now stay with me, because if you don't know the term Salafist, that movement is an ultra-conservative Orthodox movement within Sunni Islam. The doctrine is summed up as taking a fundamentalist approach to Islam. Sound familiar? Salafist is the same belief system as Wahhabism, from which ISIS draws their radical, violent, merciless beliefs. So now let's go back to that document. Because after reading page 5 in section 8C, the Department of Defense warns this, quote, if the situation unravels, there is a possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality in eastern Syria. And this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime, which is considered a strategic depth of Shia expansion in Iraq and Iran.
Yet in spite of this documented evidence, and even after these Western-backed terrorists beheaded a 12-year-old boy on camera, the government and mainstream media insist on calling them rebels.
Obviously, the United States government denies providing any sort of help to the terrorist groups that you're talking about. They say they provide help for the rebel groups. Tell us more
about... The reality
about...
is, Jake, the reality is, and I'm glad you brought up that point, because this is an often talked about thing by people like Adam Kinzinger and others saying, well, we've got to support the moderate rebels. Every place that I went, every person that I spoke to, I asked this question to them. And without hesitation, they said, there are no moderate rebels. Who are these moderate rebels that people keep speaking of? Regardless of the name of these groups, the strongest fighting force on the ground in Syria is al-Nusra or al-Qaeda and ISIS. That is a fact. There's a number of different other groups. All of them essentially are fighting alongside, with, or under the command of the strongest group on the ground that's trying to overthrow us.
And what about the first chemical weapons attack in 2013? The Obama administration claimed they knew for a fact that the Assad regime did it.
The facts cannot be denied. We know the Assad regime was responsible.
Bigger megaphone than each of you. I know many news organizations are interested in other things right now. I know you all are passionate about foreign affairs. You're all passionate about world events and humanitarian situations across the world. There is no better advocate for what is going on and shining a spotlight on the horrors that are taking place in Eastern Ghouta than each of you. If I can implore you, and I know you do this anyway as part of your jobs, talking to your editors, talking to your producers, saying this is important, this is something we've got to cover, now is the time to cover it. So many people have come to us saying, what is the United States doing about the situation in Eastern Ghouta? What can we do? The answer to that is we can shine a spotlight on that. That is what I'm attempting to do right now. That is what the government is attempting to do. And I hope you will be a part of that, shining the spotlight on that. I want to thank Elise last night. She had included me in seeing a documentary. I'm not supposed to encourage people to go see things or do some things, but I don't care. I'm going to break that rule because I think it's just that important. A documentary last night called The Last Men in Aleppo. And it was about the situation in Aleppo, Syria. And in there, you saw the humanitarian disaster. You saw these selfless men who were leaving their families every day to go try to save those who were buried in the rubble or who had been victims of attacks. That situation is being replicated today in Eastern Ghouta. We don't have to see this happen this way. Shine a spotlight on it. Let the world know exactly what is happening. We will back you in this. I will assist you in any way I can in helping you to shine a spotlight on this important issue. Elise, go right ahead. And I'd also like to mention one of your other colleagues who moderated the panel yesterday from Al Arabiya. So.
أو مسعفين يجوا لهون يساعدوا الناس.
لا ما يساعدوا الناس، بس يشيلوا الجرحى، يشيلوا هيك
ولا بس كان يساعد دفاع مدني، كان في دفاع مدني ساعد. No, there is no not.
يشيلوا ركام شغلات جرحى يطلعون من هذا ويكون في تحت المسلحين، يعني المسلح بالدرجة الأولى. المدني
armed groups the first priority.
But did they help civilians? And what were the hospitals being used for? And were the terrorists preventing them from leaving?
Yes.
How?
They used to shoot at us. And the one who killed those families are from Nusra Front.
هلا في لهم كان مسؤولين موجودين يشتغلوا معهم، يشتغلوا احيانا مع المدنيين، يشتغلوا غالبا كان بسبب الحياه بيستنى الوضع كانت هي بس.
It's early morning and they're planning an attack. Their way of defending East Aleppo is to hit back by sending suicide bombers to the Syrian army.
They don't help people. They only work when there is a camera on them, and when the camera is gone, they leave. They abandon people under the rubble. They told us to pull the bodies out by ourselves.
The complaints, but the allegations got more serious. This man accused the organization of intentionally killing his little girl.
I took her to the civil defense hospital, and they gave her an injection filled with air to kill her.
You ever see in Fardous men with white helmets, they're called the white helmets of the civil defense, helping people when they were injured?
When they came to help the injured, they stole from them. If people were wearing jewelry, they cut it off. All of them are thieves.
Some of them are honest, but many are just thieves. They see gold and they take it.
وهناك جبهة النصر وهناك كان مقر لحاله مناحة الشكل على المدرسة العزامية.
السرية أساسا مقر للمسلحين كان، بعدين اجى الدفاع المدني بلع فيها.
А вот еще один пример исламистской символики. Хотите сказать, что ее наклеили после того, как отсюда ушли с
ولا حنطين ولا بس مسلحين.
And were they treating any civilians?
نتركوه يمشوا. في كم مستوصفات يروحوا عليهم بس ما هي معالجة يعني معالجة كنا ناخذها. أنا لحد الآن إيدي مصوبة لك مثلا يعني.
Let's put it this way: money trumps peace sometimes.
We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
Paid by the CIA, who are working for television networks. This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
It may seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. Hot air balloon, I could go to space. With the air, but I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got and don't hold me back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't nothing bring me down. The love is too hard, bring me down, can't nothing bring me down. I said, bring me down, can't nothing bring me down. The love is too hard, bring me down, can't nothing bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, love is too hot. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, I said. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, love is too hot. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, I said. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room gets out of room. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on.
Is an incredible discrepancy between horrific events that she describes and her very, very cool demeanor. And if you look closely, you'll see duping delight throughout this video. You'll see duping delight throughout this video.
I really like Harry Potter.
But later on, we found out that this was another unsurprising lie.
That the most radical jihadi, if you will, opposition group, rebel group, El Nusra, we're talking about serious Salafists, Wahhabis, what you will, had access to sarin. There was a lot of intelligence reporting about it. The White House can say anything they want about it, but that is a fact, that they had access to sarin. So when the incident took place, the one thing they didn't do is they didn't consider the possibility that al-Nusra could have been one of the people that involved. They went right away to the notion that it had to be Bashar, and the world's press went with them, including the American press, and in fact, they didn't have much of a case.
So why should we trust this criminal government now? When you have a history of compulsive lying, of course you lose credibility in my book.
I believe the best path to a more peaceful world are proud, independent, and sovereign nations that serve and respect their own people. When you look at what's going on in the world, you have so many where they don't respect their people. But we want nations that cooperate together to create better for all people. That's what we're all about, all people. And we can't have madmen out there shooting rockets all over the place. And by the way, Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago. Little Rocket Man. We're going to do it because we really have no choice. And I want to tell you something, and I'm sure he's listening because he watches every word, and I guarantee you one thing, he's watching us like he never watched anybody before.
This is the first time any North Korean leader has directly addressed an international audience. Kim Jong-un saying he takes President Trump's threats personally, so he has been rattled, but he's now rattling the world with a new threat of his own, of a nuclear test explosion over the Pacific.
반드시.
From North Korea, a unique threat, and from Kim Jong-un, a first message in English, vowing to make President Trump, quote, pay dearly, calling him a mentally deranged dotard or senile old man, that word now trending online, for threatening to destroy North Korea in his UN speech Tuesday.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself.
Calling that a personal insult, Kim said Trump was a rogue and a gangster who's playing with fire. His foreign minister adding more fuel to the fire, threatening to test a hydrogen bomb over the Pacific Ocean. Kim saying Trump's threats have now convinced him his nuclear weapons are necessary. The war of words is deepening, sanctions escalating. President Trump ordering new ones.
North Korea's nuclear weapons and missile development is a grave threat to peace and security in our world.
The president also praising China.
I want to just say and thank President Xi of China for
ordering its banks to stop business with North Korea. But sanctions haven't stopped North Korea's nuclear tests, conducting its 6th and largest this month.
And we're not going to run scared. If, for any reason, North Korea attacks the United States or our allies, the U.S. will respond, period.
Talks seem remote, though President Trump isn't closing the door.
Is dialogue still possible?
Thank you.
But a nuclear threat in the Pacific has raised this crisis to a new and dangerous level. And that war of words escalating this morning with President Trump tweeting, Kim Jong-un, who's obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
There's been no evidence that the Iraqis have been able to use chemical warheads in any of these studs.
You're concerned about chemicals is certainly well taken. I've been through, at least 3 or 4 briefing classes.
Gentlemen?
Both the American military and the NATO military on this.
Gentlemen.
Yes.
Excuse me for breaking in. Charles J. Carver.
Without Derek Zoolander, male modeling wouldn't be what it is today.
Actually, hiring Eddie was my idea from the beginning.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
McDonald is here, live on Monday Night Raw. Hey, look at this! Donald Trump! Donald Trump taking down Vince McMahon! Oh, my God! The hostile takeover of Donald Trump on Vince McMahon has happened at WrestleMania 23. I didn't think he would do it! Okay, kids, make it fast. I've got a plane to catch.
We've created a magazine. Mr. Trump, we give you
Scabsy!
We are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
And we give it back to you, the people.
For too long, a small group in our nation's capital
are corrupt,
has reaped the rewards of government,
the rich,
while the people have borne the cost.
The oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity.
The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country.
And do you accept the resignation of all of these liars, of all the corrupt?
That all changes, starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
None shall interfere. Do as you please.
January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. The United States of America.
It will endure.
Now, again, as we said, we're not sure what caused this. It could possibly, and we emphasize possibly, have been a ground impact of a Scud. It could have been a ground impact of a Patriot, or it could have been the result of debris falling between the two of them. We just don't know right now, but we do know that at least 2 Scud missiles incoming were fired at Riyadh, and according to the Saudi military, they were both shot down. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia. Was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. However, there was an intercept elsewhere near the capital city, Riyadh. We've got some videotape of that you can take a look at right now. Hi, Atlanta. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
Graffiti on it? Yeah, show me graffiti.
Larry King show or bust. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this shit. Look at.
Believe that. Let me say hi.
The top 10 things about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5.
Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle.
Saudi Arabian time. All the other attacks have occurred from 10 o'clock at night till 3, 4 in the morning. This is the first one to take place in eastern Saudi Arabia during the daylight hours. Now, that sound you hear behind me is the hotel. Richard Thicker. It's not the national.
By afternoon.
So people are looking up in the skies, scanning the skies to see what they can see. Do we see much of anything out there? Can we see much of anything? Okay. Well, apparently there was some word of outgoing. Again, we cannot be specific about the direction. All right, we are now led to understand that there are also firings in another city in Saudi Arabia. CNN's Carl Rochelle is here with me. He just came up. Carl, I know we can't be very specific given these restrictions, but within those parameters, what did you see?
Well, what I saw, I didn't see anything hit. I looked almost straight above us. There is a vapor trail coming from my right to my left, and there's a cloud of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion, a cloud. I'd say it was... My apologies for that. He's putting on a gas mask. There hasn't been any gas dropped here that we could tell. You smell anything? No. Oh. You may smell some of the fumes from a missile exhaust going off. The missiles use a rocket, a cordite, some sort of burning. We just heard a little thump just then. But
I have to apologize for that. I caught a whiff of something and felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced in military affairs than I am, but it might have been a little gas from the rocket exhaust. There apparently wasn't anything. A lot of people have the respirators on just in case.
And again, you run to get down here. You, in my case, jumped out of bed hearing the air raid warning go on. You run down 3 flights of stairs to get out of here. It's probably 100 yards. You hyperventilate a little bit, and you're nervous.
One thing we have to point out, just so people won't think people are panicking. Most people are in their shelters. They've taken cover in their shelters, and in the time we've been in Saudi Arabia, I've not seen any evidence of panic in the streets or people running around and going up. People are not exactly taking this as a matter of course, but there's been no wholesale panic or anything. People are taking orderly precautions to deal with the stuff that's going on right now.
Okay, again, everything seems to be quiet. What I saw when I walked down, when I came running down, someone had said there is a hit upstairs over our heads, right straight up above us. And I looked up, and you could see the vapor trail, the contrail that's made by an aircraft or a rocket at high altitude. And there was a round puff of smoke that indicated something happened at that point. A lot of smoke. It could be a hit from one of the Patriots taking down a Scud missile inbound, or taking down an aircraft for that matter. But right now, where we are, we have absolutely seen nothing happen. A little boom one time, a small boom, could have been the sound traveling from high on. That's not actually confirming that anything happened. We don't know that there is a hit or anything. We're just telling you what we think and what we see at this point. The air raid sirens are running. The air raid is going on. Could very well be something has happened, but we're all safe right here. The reason I'm wearing a helmet is because it's easier and safer to put it on your head than it is to carry it around in your hand. We're just trying to be prudent. CD is carrying his gas mask with him. I have mine strapped on at my side. You'll get some indication that there is gas, and one of the indications that there has been gas, there'll be an explosion pretty close to you. There has to be a way to deliver it. As far as we know, they have not yet delivered any in a rocket vehicle, in a Scud-type vehicle down to this area or anywhere else. Could happen, but there should be plenty of warning on that.
Yeah, Carl, and again, I have to apologize for the audience for yelling gas and putting the gas mask on, but what happened, as Carl explained, is sometimes when the propellant goes off, I believe that's what it would be, you get this whiff of something. I felt momentarily choked up and dizzy and thought, well, better safe than sorry. And it turned out that was not the case. But again, that could have just been the propellant from the outgoing missile. We have seen streaks outgoing. We heard a bang, but as Carl said, there's no hard evidence that anything was hit. We know what we saw, but we can't speculate about what was in it or what it was. And so far, there's been no evidence that the Iraqis have been able to use chemical warheads in any of these Scuds.
We're concerned about chemicals is certainly well taken. I've been through, at least 3 or 4 briefing classes.
Gentlemen?
Both the American military and the NATO military on this.
Gentlemen.
Yes.
Excuse me for breaking in. Charles Jaco, Carl Rochelle.
Without Derek Zoolander, male modeling wouldn't be what it is today.
Actually, hiring Eddie was my idea from the beginning.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
McDonald is here, live on Monday Night Raw.